What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. I know we've been on a little hiatus for a while. I've just been working on some kinks in the background, trying to finish up my series that I will start recording probably this coming week, actually, and I'll start hopefully releasing these videos out within the next month or so. So I do apologize for the little temporary break, but I promise it's for the better good. Um, just to remind everyone, I do go through about 10 to 15 or so names that I do like for this coming week. Reminder, if you want my watch list a day in advance so you can use it as a form of homework to prep and create your own analysis before my videos get released, so you can compare your results with mine, make sure to follow me on X at AB Trades. Also, I will keep reminding you guys this probably for another month or so, but don't forget that my checklist market guide is on X and it's pinned. And remember, it's just a really great guide that you can use when you're charting to pretty much see how much confluences you can create. The more things you can check off and answer, I promise you, the better the result for that trade will be. Remember, as always, this is not financial advice. This is just me sharing how I am approaching the market for this week in terms of names that I really like. So hopefully it gives you a few ideas to add to your own. So let's just go ahead and get started. The first name that I like is CSX. And you've just been in a really nice structural trend here. And I really like it coming into this week. There's two scenarios that I'm kind of watching, but as you can see, the overall order flow on this has been pretty nice. And you finally got this really nice higher time frame expansion where price is now trying to reset. And I do have annotated some higher time frame breakers, basically your supply flips into support now, right? So really good breakers here, as well as a nice weekly one. And you can see we had a really nice inside week that held for the most part. So things that I'm watching, we are failing to get continuation against this supportive displacement counter to the downside. And so the nature of how it was created is going to support sellers. So they could be coming here to rebalance, refill, and potentially give you one more expansion down or retracement in regards to the higher time frame trend. So if we can't get an immediate push on CSX through 40, I am looking for two scenarios. Scenario one is we retest this 38 zone, see how price responds. And if we do respond in according to buyers, we are going to find exhaustion here because it's what it's been doing. It's been in a really decent trend so far, right? Like you're creating internal structure within the external. So this kind of internal structure on the lower time frames, you are setting up lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, right? So if we don't get that immediate push through that 40, again, I'm looking to see if you create either an exhaustion candle that fails to make new lows, or we get one final sweep on that daily, right? You have pretty good internal structure here that it's been following along very well. So if there's not that immediate push through 40, I'm looking for reactions either into this 38 gap or one final sweep into a really nice weekly breaker, daily refine demand retest, and your overall discount of the move. Because we've already tapped the golden pocket and we had pretty good reactions. But ultimately, to me, it still looks like if we don't get that delivery through 40, we can get a really nice entry that then I think materializes into a nice run up into earnings, right? It is coming up, so keep an eye on that. But I do like the development of this overall. So remember, the key area is this 40 zone, 40.2 if you want. If no acceleration through that, then we're looking for retest either into the 38 or a little bit deeper to give us a true discounted entry. And if we do break, my targets would be back up into 42, 42.60, and maybe new all-time highs. If this is a confirmed higher low, I'm looking for the next higher high. Next up on the list is J&J, and this one's a pretty straightforward trade. Nothing too crazy. I just like the last week, I guess you can call it last week's development. I really like the failed weekly that climbed back into the range. Pretty much you've kind of been stuck 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 or so weeks without any true expansion. And I like now that you kind of manipulated these weekly lows into a really nice supportive imbalance here on the weekly. So I'll come in and label this. Right, we've come in, rebalanced, and actually traded back into the higher time frame range. So we had a really nice sweep of lows back into the overall range here. And I do like that that weekly sweep did come from a gap up with displacement. And so now we have a little bit of overhead here. This 241.76 is applying some pressure to buyers, meaning sellers are getting a little bit of control here. But if we can get a 4-hour close above 241.76 or even a daily, I do think it activates a new structure here in terms of like how the 4 hour is developing. So you pop above, retest, and then run. Or scenario number 2 is I just really want to protect these lows. Scenario number 2 is maybe you come back, reset that gap, and then try to expand. But I do like the overall strength. I do like the weekly. I am also prepared for a third driver, as we do know those happen, right? If we can't get that immediate push, there could still be one final low that then redirects price into a really nice expansion. So just keep an eye on that. But I do like this gap up that pretty much created a nice broadening inversion or broadening displacement against a higher time frame low that is now developing quite well. So like you do have a little reference point here. And so if J&J can respect 235 to about 239, I think we can create a really nice base to potentially give us the next leg up. And if not, we're looking for one more driver, maybe into a monthly sweep that then climbs back up. So keep that on watch. Another name that I really like is HPQ, HP Inc. The 2-hour gives me like Wyckoff vibes, and it's off the bottom of the like overall weekly monthly range, right? These are your last significant monthly lows. Price pushes up, you kind of create some nice, you kind of manufacture that liquidity into a potential higher low, similar to what we covered in CSX in terms of like, oh, you get a bounce back and you find exhaustion. So like this is what I mean, right? You have really nice exhaustion at lows and you develop your first higher low relative to the overall trend, and then you displace up. So based off this 4-hour and daily, you have a nice gap and you have a good element of support here. Relative to this, you now have a higher low, higher high. So the question is this now going to build out within this reference point, respect the 17.99 low, and maybe develop here, form a base against this gap, and then try to get some expansion to 20 plus. I like the overall strength that it showed, especially on Friday. Really nice failed break. You have relative equal highs in it at 20.12, came in, restructured the gap, climbed back into the overall weekly range. Weekly candle is not the greatest, but it is a good start. So I'm going to keep an eye on this into further development, see how it does. ALB is one of my favorites. Really pretty weekly displacement. I covered this in depth in the 8x Trades Discord in terms of the overall monthly sweep off of a really nice refined range. You could see how we come down, then aggressively reclaim. So if ALB can now develop into that next higher low, because we have now internal shift in our structure, when I cover the 4-hour, because you could see this, right? And if I drag this out, we displaced against a previous lower high. If the structure was going to remain intact, we should have continued lower. But this actually showed really nice relative strength against the market and actually created new weekly highs while majority of things created new weekly lows. So what I'm watching on ALB is, can we now, I guess, absorb and manufacture to create the next leg up into that gap? 186, 190, 195 would be my next targets. Really pretty 4-hour development, nice daily. Now we want to see how price responds into those weekly high retests if you get one. Or if you want to go for a 4-hour higher low, that's also applicable here. You could come in and look for a discounted leg of the overall lower time frame range. So you have, look at how clean that previous week high lines up with the 0.5 of this current range. So you have a really good discounted zone here. You can kind of go back, recorrect all the way if you want, or previous week high retest, because it's also now coexisting with a nice little SR flip here on your lower time frames, which is now flipped, right? So really, really clean chart. See how it develops. See if you want to continue basing here now that you've established a nice flip. Next up on the list is probably one of my favorite charts, KR. So there is a bit of an underlying theme in the names that I like, a good chunk of XLP names, and that's just because XLP was showing really nice relative strength. I mean, for example, we made new lows on SPY on Friday, and Kroger actually made a new high of day. You actually made new weekly highs relative to that weekly candle, right? And you gapped up while the market was gapping down. So I have a zone here, and similar to the last structure on Kroger, if I zoom into the 4-hour just to give you a better visual here, similar to the last 4-hour, you had this, now you're here. So the question is, now that you got a little internal sweep and you got a nice 4-hour broadening inversion with the gap up, can you utilize this 4-hour candle? Because remember, when I see a displacement candle against a low or a high, it becomes a reference point for me, because that reference point for me shows me where the shift happened. So here in Kroger, you could see you have this aggressive sweep into that daily low, right? You create the weekly low, and then you create a really nice displacement against it. So like this overall range between 71 and 72.85 is all very applicable for buyers. They could go back, rebalance, and go higher. And we also have the overall external discount of our daily swing low to swing high in terms of the overall trend that it's still in. So we either get a nice retest of this or one final sweep into that. But Kroger to me still looks like a really good trade for continuation into new monthly highs. I really like the structure. Question now comes down to how well can these zones hold, right? In between 72.90 and 71. And if that fails, we're looking for one more discounted entry to potentially get one more rebalance of these unfilled orders that exist here. I really like KR, nice weekly to it. Next up on the list is Huntsman Corporation. This one's a pretty clean chart, and what I did was I took the overall range from the last known low to this current swing high, and we actually came back underneath the equilibrium of this range. And the reason this is important is because this got you a monthly low sweep back into a supportive weekly imbalance. And not only did you do that, right, you have these three pieces of confluence, but then you create a really nice lower time frame inversion and you gap up. You got a little poke through, but failure to really run. But now you're creating a really nice base here on the 4-hour. And if you don't get this momentum break here, I am looking for a really nice retest that then runs. Overall, I have a bullish bias on Hun. And I know a lot of the other names were looking for potential retracements, because I'm always trying to find the best entry possible. And so I understand that here at a weekly high pivot where we've kind of been manufacturing all this liquidity, I just really like the delivery of price that got you back into this zone, right? I love the fact that you came under the range 50%, took out a monthly low, came into a weekly supportive inefficiency, and then you displaced back through it and you gapped up, right? You held a weekly high when everything else is making weekly lows. So this is something I want to pay attention to, especially on that 4-hour. If we do get that reset, you have a 3-1 on the 4 hours, so you have an actionable signal here against your weekly high. If you get a little retracement, I am watching for an entry somewhere within this 11 zone. And if not, I would like a breakout into the 14 plus. Overall, it's looking really, really good. Next up on the list, similar to Hun, I won't spend too much time on this one, is APD. And APD just had, again, displacement candles become reference points for me, right? Look at what it did here. This becomes a really large displacement candle on the higher time frame. And look at how you engineer this liquidity and then find buyers at a point of confluence gap, golden pocket, weekly sweep, and then aggressively push back up. So now you have this little reference point here. You have a little bit here. So my thought process is now is like, if we can stay above 280, I do think APD is setting up for a really nice move back into those monthly highs. And I really like the momentum on this. I like the fact that you held inside day, no real breakthrough. You're holding within your overall monthly highs while everything else, again, is weak. I'm just looking at relative strength here. And then there's something going on with chemicals. ALB, APD, there's also a few other names that I covered in the Discord. But these chemicals, process industries, chemicals, specialty, whatever, they all have similar setups and are showing underlying strength. So if you can find something that looks similar to APD, ALB, and all those, Dow Inc. is another good one. ADM is another good one. Keep an eye on them. I feel like the rotation hasn't really stopped within those names, and I think they want to continue on higher. Next up on the list is Target, and this is just a really clean breakout against a gap down that created a really nice LRLR. Notice how you're only taking out your sell side, but you're doing it in a form where there's no aggressive intent into that delivery against a gap fill. And then look at how price redirects. Look at how it moves so quickly. This is why I really love identifying these kind of engineered runs on liquidity, because it's so tight and methodical that when you actually get a run, look at how it just goes through it, right? Price moves with intention, price moves with an objective. And so with Target developing the way it is, and you had a really nice follow through on Friday, now I want to use this as a pivot. So the gap down where you had SR, and you also have a really good flip point here. So you can kind of come in and annotate it, right? I'm going to annotate this white because I just don't like how freaking, whoops, transparent the opacity is just way too much. My fault, guys. So yeah, so now we have this really good little flip point here on the 4 hour. And so if that continues to respect, I really want this daily to continue its delivery on up, right? You put in a really nice weekly. And so with that kind of significant strength, as long as we don't fall back under like 116, 117, I would like this to have follow through. 4 hour looks pretty good. Nice little reset. The only problem is that if you do lose that 117, what did you do on the way up now? You lose a point of significance, then you get this. So I would actually color code this as yellow as a caution zone, because if you lose it, I think Target actually then becomes a good short. So see how price develops against 117 and its current present price. Target would be 126 and higher if you do break out. And if you get a short, I would actually target 110 and 108. So make sure you have this flip point here available. Overall, pretty nice looking daily setting up here. Next up on the list is AG, First Majestic Silver. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I actually saw some really nice option sales coming in for this on Friday, and I think there was a little bit before that too. But within the overall range, I think it's definitely setting up for a really nice swing into Q4. And the reason is because there was a lot of good positioning that came in for October, a lot of positioning for December actually, and they were all above the ask or at the ask, and pretty nice relative sweeps, somewhere even in like the 800,000s, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think the overall buildup for December could be pointing a nice picture for what materials and minerals could be doing and or setting up into these next 2 quarters, right? So I really like this, and I've kind of come in here and I annotated. This was a first refined zone before the breakout happened. So this would be zone 1. The second zone would be you kind of sweep all this remaining sell side here into a really nice established zone, right? Gap fill. It's a really good monthly pivot, weekly pivot as well. So I'm looking at 2 zones, right? 18, 17 respects. You get a nice move back up into 28, or you get one final aggressive like swing low into 12 through about 16, clean up some of these lows here, and then rally up. The only problem is we did come into a nice weekly zone, right? So these are weekly zones, guys, that I think can be good reference points. So this was the first one you actually held inside week. that could start to rebalance back up to the upside. 24.25 would be my first target if that does happen from here. And if the weekly inside breaks down, right, maybe a retest that fails, comes back under a monthly low, then I am looking for the final zone. But I do want to start positioning for a December swing on this, and just kind of swing through all of it. I think it's setting up really good. Definitely something to monitor, especially when your hourly is starting to develop into a potential reversal that then could domino effect into the higher time frames, right? Hourly is looking pretty promising, guys. You have really good buildup here that could actually give you an expansion higher into this week. And if not, then again, we're looking for those final zones to test. So just keep an eye on this. Some interesting positioning came in for December, October, December timeframe. I think it could be worth monitoring. And last but not least is ALTO. So remember earlier when I talked about the chemicals, another one, process industries chemicals. So I really like this one in terms of the weekly, and I think it's setting up for a really nice rally, guys. 3 weeks of development. Again, you can have a little bit more based off what it did last time, but this aggressive earnings candle is acting as your peg post earnings catalyst, because now underneath it you have a really nice gap. And all of this here is going to be in favor of buyers because of the context of price delivery down up. So I think if you build out a little bit, I think you still trade out higher. And it could happen within this week or into April OPEX, just because of how this weekly is developing. You closed near highs and you came in off of a weekly sweep. The only issue is I would love if we created a 3 driver, right? So 1, 2, 3, and this 3 driver actually comes in discount. But I know the market won't always give me what I want. But if this does happen, you have a lot of confluence into that gap and that previous breaker because of how it coexists. Earnings gap, 3 driver, manufacturer liquidity, golden pocket, pre-ER. That would be beautiful. Now, one thing I'm watching is if ALTO does get above 4.7, I think you just get that expansion without the dip. So scenario 1 or scenario 2 would be against that 14.7. So it's going to be really hard to get an entry on this because of how you closed. So I would really personally like a inside week that then maybe develops higher. But yeah, pretty short watch list. That concludes everything for the most part. If you want to get a bonus chart, make sure to like up my previous tweet on X, and I can get that released for something that I am watching as a possible short that then overall turns into a long. Yeah, guys, pretty exciting stuff that's coming out for everyone here on this YouTube channel within the next few months. Pretty excited to get all the content out. Should be fun. Yeah, tell your friends and family all about my page. Share it with your trading coworkers if you have any. And as always, see you guys next week. See you.